Listeners to this show know that we believe that corruption is kind of the first, second, and third most important story of this administration. It's the thing driving everything.
Yeah, we've definitely been on that beat.
It's a rich beat. There's a lot of avenues to cover.
Yeah.
So the New York Times reported out a bunch of new details about just one piece of the corruption pie that I think was really instructive in terms of helping listeners understand how the grift works and what the impact is on our national interest. So here's the gist. So last week, Eric Trump, he went to Vietnam for a groundbreaking ceremony for a $1.5 billion golf development project. The plan includes villas, 36 holes of golf. There's theme parks. There's a big commercial zone. The Times, they reported that they erected a tent for a groundbreaking ceremony that had a golden facade. I thought that was a nice gaudy touch. So according to this report, Vietnam has ignored at least a half dozen legally required steps in the development process to fast track what is usually a 2 to 4 year process in just 3 months to accommodate Eric Trump's travel schedule. The Times says that Vietnamese officials, both publicly and privately, say they hope this golf project will be seen as a gesture of goodwill to help them build better ties with the U.S. and with Trump. And Ben, this is one of my favorite details. Last week, we talked about Trump flipping out on the president of South Africa about a law that allows the South African government to expropriate land from farmers without compensation. This story says that the Trump company is pushing ahead with this golf project in Vietnam that will displace hundreds of farmers who were told that they at best should expect to get about half the value of their land in compensation. So he's doing exactly what he claims is a problem in South Africa. And this isn't the only project. There's also a skyscraper going on in Vietnam. And so the point is, these foreign officials, they do not see any distinction between Trump's business interests and U.S. interests, nor should they, right? I mean, it's sort of that's the whole deal. And this is also happening all over the world. Just a couple examples. There's a $500 million hotel project in Oman, a $500 million Trump tower in Jeddah, another $500 million tower in Riyadh. There's a $500 million Trump tower in Dubai, a $3 billion golf and villa project in Qatar. That was just announced in April. There's nearly $2 billion worth of development happening in India, $1.4 billion. That's the Jared Kushner Hotel in Albania. There's a $500 million hotel project in Serbia. This doesn't even get into all the money the Saudis are pouring into the Trump properties here by hosting golf tournaments. So, Ben, it's a little tedious to go through all of this, but I just thought it's critical for everyone to understand the kind of the mindset of these foreign officials who think their focus right now is on putting money in Trump's pocket. It's not about constructing deals that would normally be viewed as being in the U.S. interest or advancing U.S. policies.
Yeah, I think what's hard for people, understandably, is that we're accustomed to corruption being something that a politician kind of skims off the top, right? You get a side payment, or even in Trump's first term, they're staying in his hotel rooms, and that kind of pads the bottom line. And I think where this is different is that the corruption itself is the entire point of the enterprise. It's not like an add-on.
Right.
It's actually the foundation of the entire presidency.
That's why Eric went to Vietnam.
Yeah, and because to give you an example of this, if you take this Vietnam piece, Trump puts 49% tariffs on Vietnam, and then he pauses it. And in the pause, they don't agree to, buy a certain amount of American products, or I don't know, whatever the thing is that might in some way benefit Americans. They agree to do this. They agree to put $1 billion+ in the Trump organization. And that's the point. It's using the policy of the United States, in this case tariffs, to extract an enormous amount of money in the context of an individual company like the Trump organization. And that's how it works. And so no Americans benefit. I mean, what is so outrageous about this is, Trump supporters are well, he needed to give himself leverage, right? Trump is finally leveraging our status in the global economy to get a better deal. He's just leveraging things Americans built. The reason that America has a huge economy and leverage is not because of anything Donald Trump did. It's because of what generations of Americans did. And he's just leveraging it to get money, to just get money plowed in the Trump organization. The second point is, these are all kind of autocratic countries, right? Mm-hmm. Notice you didn't say,
the UK.
The UK or Canada or, Botswana, right? These are rich autocratic countries where they can do this, where they can basically you know what, how we're going to deal with Trump, we're just going to throw like $1 billion here, $2 billion here, and just kind of get through this 4 years with all of our interests taken care of. By the way, it's not a lot of money to them. I mean, it's a lot to Vietnam, but for Qatar, Saudi Arabia, this is nothing. This is a rounding area, right? And the last thing is that like Vietnam is an important country. It's a really important country. It's a big country in Southeast Asia that is like kind of a swing country between the U.S. and China, and we're just treating it like a piggy bank for the Trump organization. And so there's something so diminishing about it for the United States that we're now just another thuggish autocratic country playing by these rules in ways that don't serve our own people. But it is ultimately fundamentally what this presidency is clearly animated by.
Yeah, and to a lesser extent, this is happening on behalf of Elon Musk and Starlink. Like ProPublica had a piece out about how the Trump administration is pushing countries to make deals with Starlink, the Elon Musk satellite internet company. And that includes putting extreme pressure on very poor countries in Africa, like Gambia, where, according to this report by ProPublica, the local telecom infrastructure is like 20% of all tax revenue for the country, and it's a huge source of jobs and infrastructure. So if Starlink puts the local telecom companies out of business, that's a huge problem. But also, even if Starlink is better or cheaper or faster and a good deal for people in the country, if it becomes the only game in town, they all know that Elon can then jack up the price or threaten to pull out or do all the shit he did to, Ukraine in the days of the war. So, like, it's like, sure, they're advancing a U.S. business, but doing so in a way that's like predatory.
And they're advancing, and this is a common thread with Trump, despite what he says about, bringing jobs back to the industrial Midwest. That's not happening. First of all, none of these U.S. businesses are like broadly benefiting American people, right? So first of all, you and I think it's grotesque that we treat foreign countries like this and foreign publics and the same, Gambia will kill USAID, will mess up their economy, but we'll care about Starlink. But the thing is, like, even these deals he's announcing, right? So that big deal we talked about last week, the AI deal in the Gulf, there's not, like, the OpenAI, Starlink, these are not countries that are opening, like, the assembly line in Michigan.
Right. This is going to benefit a small group of really rich
like how many people work?
Investors.
Yeah, how many people work for Starlink? I mean, it's certainly not like GM back in the day, right? No. And so that's what's so like even further maddening is that even when he can kind of say he's going to bat for some U.S. company, he tallies up some huge number. Because I also don't believe the investment numbers.
No.
The Saudis will say that we're going to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy. No, they're not. They're going to invest a lot of money in AI in the Gulf. And yes, some of that money is going to be invested in U.S. companies, but it's going to pad the bottom line of like Sam Altman. It's not going to like benefit broad-based prosperity in this country. And this is where the gap between like the division in the Democratic Party between foreign and domestic kind of messaging is got to go away, because you cannot explain to Trump people, their voters, why they're being screwed by Trump without explaining this stuff to them. That he's basically leveraging the entire power of the United States to enrich himself and a very small number of people at their expense.
Yeah, who are his donors. Yeah, and also, those Gulf investment numbers, they're completely made up. Like, they're not going to do $1 trillion worth of investment.
They're not.
They want to give him the press release, and then they'll do whatever they do. Also, interestingly, Ben, I saw that BYD, which is a big Chinese electric vehicle company, they're kind of going hard at Elon now. They cut prices by 34%, so they're going to try to just kill Tesla sales in China, the Middle East, and Europe. So it seems like maybe you could imagine a scenario where the Chinese are working with them to create some leverage of their own.
And you could imagine a scenario where, again, this stuff doesn't become manifest like tomorrow, right? So it's not like, oh my God, all of a sudden the whole global economy is reoriented away from the United States. But these are the kinds of things that are happening on a daily basis, right? People are like buying different cars. People are adjusting their supply chains. You think that Vietnam is going to use the golf course to get Trump off its back. then it's probably going to cut a bunch of trade deals with China.
Yep.
And so Trump gets to look like strong, like I bully, because they'll come up with some other thing. They'll say that they're going to buy more, rice from the U.S.
Well, no, but what they want, what the Trump administration wants, is for Vietnam to crack down on Chinese companies that are basically using them as a middleman.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
To export Chinese products into the U.S.
They're not going to do that.
Right. The Vietnamese,
Does anybody believe that they're and by the way, the people in the U.S., this is important, and it kind of sets up some of the stuff we'll talk about the NSC later. The people in the U.S. government who have to be expert enough to follow the commercial behavior and practices of Vietnam over a period of years to determine if they're a pass-through for Chinese goods, they all got doged.
Right.
Like, there's no experts in the government to even do the things that they use this language to justify what they're doing, but what they're doing is for entirely different purposes.
Yeah, good luck, big balls.
Yeah, big balls is not like you could evaluate the inputs into certain Vietnamese products.
Yeah, cotton from Xinjiang that's picked with slave labor. Yeah, good luck. You just watched an excerpt from this week's episode of Pod Save the World, the foreign policy show I do with Ben Rhodes every week about the biggest national security stories happening both in Washington and the world. If you want to watch the rest, subscribe to Pod Save the World wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube.